Hello and welcome to this edition of Talking Around the Library Tree. I'm the host for this one. I'm Andy Holgate, and I'm joined today by my colleague, librarian Ciara Murray, and I'm delighted to have you here. So welcome to the show, Ciara.
Thank you very much.
So first of all, first question, is not why you want the job. Tell us what your role is and how you can help students.
Okay, so my role is faculty librarian here at Lancaster, and I work together with Paul Newnham, who I'm sure you'll be hearing from at some point, and we support the arts and social sciences faculty. My job is primarily to do with resources, so the library content, whether that's kind of journal subscriptions or our many databases. It's my job to try and stay on top of all of that and to help people make best use of those resources as well.
Okay, sounds a very interesting dynamic there, staying on top of databases.
Yeah, there's a lot more databases than where I was last time.
That can lead into one of my questions, which I was going to ask later, but so it is, yeah. So what is your favourite database and why?
Well, I think I've had, I wouldn't say necessarily that my favourite ones, but I've spent quite a lot of time over the last year getting to know the legal databases. Mm-hmm. So that's Lexis Plus and Westlaw, because I was asked at the end of last summer to kind of take on support for the law department, which I was quite excited by. I didn't know very much about the law, but I spent a lot of time kind of finding out more, did a course to try and better understand what the students are going to be doing, and also to give me a bit of context for the sorts of questions that they might be being asked to consider in their assignments, and also got lots of training on using the databases. So I feel relatively confident with using those now and to sort of signpost students to them. And I think it also helps not having done it for years and years in a sense, because you can still remember what it feels like to not know everything about it, which is sometimes helpful, I think, when you're teaching people. Apart from that, I really like some of our primary source databases. We did a really good session with our library service assistants, where we kind of asked them to look at something that they were particularly interested in, as if they were doing a bit of personal research, and told them to look through our primary source databases. And we had all kinds of interesting things come out of that. And it's amazing how much stuff is in there, and all these documents that you can access and read, loads of kind of old newspaper stuff. So I'm an ex-English student, so I think that kind of appeals to me.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I'm an ex-history student, and I wish I'd had that when I was, I went to university in the Dark Ages, people, and we still had manuscripts and quills. So certainly didn't have any of those type of databases. And they,
all at your fingertips.
as a history student, they would just be amazing. So if you're doing history, get all over those databases there for you. So changing tack a little bit now. Always got to ask a librarian this question. Can you tell us what your favourite book is and why it's left an impression on you?
This is always a dangerous question to ask, not only like a librarian,
it could be a long podcast.
An English student, yeah. I'll try. Well, I've got two, so I hope I'm allowed to.
You're allowed to.
One is Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. Mm-hmm. I read it when I was 11, so I was around the same age as the protagonist in it. I remember really clearly just being so excited by that book and like sitting up late reading it. And there's something about books that you love as a child and you really remember that stay with you, I think, more strongly than the books you read as an adult. So that's kind of remained with me. And I actually weirdly did my master's dissertation on Philip's trilogy and the kind of adaptation of Paradise Lost to those three books, his original trilogy. And got to meet him in Oxford when I was doing a kind of my graduate librarian traineeship there. So I was working in the Bodleian at night time and in a college during the day. And it was all quite it was a very cool place to be anyway. But then Philip Pullman lives in Oxford and he was doing a book signing. So I was like, right, I am there. Brought my dissertation with me in the queue. So everybody was standing there with all the piles of books. I had my piles of books as well, but I was like, I'm going to bring my dissertation because it's going to be a unique item to be signed by him. So, and then I got to the front of the queue and I just couldn't speak to him. I just completely lost the ability to speak. I think anyone that knows me would just not believe that was the case.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those moments where you're kind of meeting someone that you've read the books of for years and just kind of a bit blown away to be standing there in front of him. So yeah, it was quite cool.
Yeah, and Northern Lights is a fantastic book. I mean, one of my teenage daughter's prized possessions, she has a signed copy of the graphic novel.
Oh wow, okay, I don't have the graphic novel. I've got lots of his other stuff, and I do kind of try and grab anything that he puts out now. But yeah, I love all his stories and his attitude towards storytelling, and the fact that he, read stories to his class as an English teacher, just sort of reciting bits of the Odyssey and things like that. So yeah, and then the other one, my other favourite that I kind of go back and read again as a kind of comfort read, is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith.
I don't know that one.
It's a really good one. It's set, I think, sort of beginning of the sort of 1920s sort of time. Yeah, I think I'm right in saying that. I should have read it before I came on the podcast, but it's been a while since I've had to go back and read it again. But the author the protagonist in that is just a really memorable protagonist. She wants to be a writer, and she starts off and it's all told from her kind of perspective. And yeah, I just love it. It's one of those ones I go back to when I need a bit of a relax.
Yeah, I think we all have a book like that, don't we? Yeah. So no, that's cool. That's really good to hear that. I'll have to look that one up. So you've been at Lancaster now, I think it's just over 2 years, is it?
Yeah, 2 years, so, beginning in November.
So you're not a newbie anymore.
I still feel a little bit new, but yeah.
So this leads on to my next question. So what's been your best moment at Lancaster so far?
I think, again, I've probably got two.
That's fine. You can have as many as you want.
The first one is when myself, Paul and Heather took one of our academic colleagues and a postgrad researcher. We all went together to News from Nowhere, the independent bookshop in Liverpool, and we spent the day there kind of looking at all their stock and buying books for the library. And it was just a really kind of exciting thing to be a part of. We felt a little bit under pressure to kind of spend the amount of money that we'd been allowed to take with us. It was a little bit like sort of supermarket sweep. How many books can you get in 6 hours? But it was brilliant, and the selection that they had there was really great. It was lovely to be able to support an independent bookshop as well. A lot of the time, university libraries' money goes to big publishing companies, and I think this was a way of trying to kind of divert some of those funds to a smaller organisation and actually directly to the authors as well in a lot of those cases. So that was a really enjoyable day. And then the other thing that I was very excited about was when we first got all the board games delivered, and they were all piled up on my desk, and everybody kept coming and saying, "Oh, what are these? What are these?" And then I discovered lots of fellow board gamers amongst the library staff, so that was good fun.
Yeah, and that sounds really good. And check out our episode that we have on board games as well on the library podcast. So yeah, a little plug for you there. And for those of you watching or listening to this, a librarian going to a bookshop to buy books is the equivalent of a kid going to a sweet shop with a blank check. Yeah, we all get very, very excited by it.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, we've all done it. It's fantastic. So a little bit more of a serious note now with the next question. Well, it's not that serious. So imagine you could travel back in time. Now, how cool would that be? What piece of advice would you give yourself as a student that you've learned now as a librarian?
It's a tricky one, because I think, like you, I think my library experience was quite different to how it would be if I was studying today. I I was a total library nerd all through school and at university. You know, my first port of call when I got an essay was like, right, got to get to the library, got to get the stack of books, come out with the stack of books, and then you feel really good because you're like, oh yeah, I'm ready for this now. And then you have to go and read them all.
Yeah, that's the issue.
You can't just absorb it by taking them out of the library. But yeah, so I feel like I was quite good on that account. And I was trying to think, like, when I did my first degree, did we do a lot of kind of looking for academic sources? And I feel like the things that I remember were sort of me trying to respond to the texts rather than looking for secondary sources. But it's interesting because whenever I've had meetings with students, I find that when we start searching for things, it can actually like shape your question and what you're, you know, as you start following the trails that you uncover as you're searching, it maybe sends you off in different directions, kind of unexpected directions, helps you focus in on what you're actually wanting to do. So I might say spend a bit more time on the secondary sources and what other people have kind of already said about these works. I think it's really important to develop your own voice and to have your own opinions about you know, especially if you're responding to literature, but also there's a lot of value in the secondary stuff too.
I think it's very good advice.
Don't fall asleep in the library. That's what I would tell my undergraduate self as well. I was telling people, like, I'd been up for most of the night probably trying to write an essay, and I decided that I wouldn't bother going to bed. I'd just go straight to the library and read something. And I was there sitting on the quite comfy seats and just kind of slowly going sideways with Thomas More's book. And I'm like, okay, I think maybe it's time to go back to my room and have a sleep.
Yeah, I mean, that's still an issue for students today, because I'm usually in quite early in the morning. I'm a morning person, and as I'm walking to the office, I pass lots of students asleep.
Yeah,
so we still have
comfy seats.
We still have comfy seats in the library. Is the takeaway from that? So that's good. So final question to wrap this up, and again, it's a personal one, so please, you don't have to answer this, but
all right, I'll see what I can think of.
Tell us an unusual fact about yourself, or an interesting fact.
I don't know how unusual it is, but when I was at uni, I was part of the university ceilidh band, so that we played a lot of Irish and Scottish folk music. We played for May balls and dances, charities, birthdays and things like that. And it was a big kind of part of my social life there. Met my husband in the band, and, you know, made a lot of memories doing that. But the most unusual place that we played was on a kind of pontoon platform in the middle of a river in Padua for this music festival.
Wow.
We had a chap called Ed Emery in the band who just seemed to know people all over the world, and he would draw on all these contacts, and we got invited to go along to this music festival in Padua. So there we were, like, standing on this stage in the middle of the river playing ceilidh tunes whilst everyone on the bank was dancing. So that's
pretty cool.
Pretty unusual.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for joining us today. So thank you for listening or watching to this podcast. Please check out the other ones that we have. And if you are from FASS and you need any assistance, then please get in touch with Ciara. And she's brilliant. She'll get you sorted out. And thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.